Let's show them our outfits.
Okay. Should we try to take a cute picture over here?
Get it, girl. Did you buy this plant just for the video?
No, girl, this is Silas's plan.
You look so great.
Really?
Yeah.
The boobs don't look saggy.
That's going in the bloopers.
I'm sweating.
Did you prepare?
No, I don't know what's happening.
Okay. I'm starting now.
Great.
So, welcome back to my show. I brought Millie on today because she is one of my besties, and how long have we known each other? 7 years?
8, 9.
I don't know. Almost a decade now. So we have I think we relate a lot because we have a lot of traumatic experiences, and so that's definitely a huge part of our like friendship. She's been through a bunch of stuff, and like I know when I met you, I was like, there's no way you've gone through like what you've gone through, just because it didn't like carry into who you are now. Mm-hmm. So I really want to just like dive deep into her story. You guys are gonna be shocked, I'm sure, because you truly are like so amazing. It's so pretty. You can start in your childhood. Talk about your mom and dad. So just start off with that.
Yeah. I'm not your typical relatable childhood story. I think where we could start was when I was 1. I was actually probably about Sai's age. And my father, he was a very physically and psychologically abusive man to my mom. And so she, in the middle of the night with me as the 1-year-old, my sister about 3, and then my oldest sister at that point, she was probably about 10 or 11, she got 3 plane tickets and she flew to Missouri from Pennsylvania. And she struggled with addiction. She struggled with her children being an inconvenience in her life. She struggled with codependency in the wrong men. And she struggled with mental illness. She had a lot of seizures. She was schizophrenic for a good period of my childhood.
Did you know, like, if she had seizures and stuff, did you have any idea, like, what was going on? Or that she was, like, not acting normal?
Yeah. Some of my youngest memories with her, I was about 5. And even before that, my oldest sister, because she really helped, she would just tell us that really the journey started with, we were homeless a lot, we were in trailer parks a lot. Her codependency for men was so strong that she would abandon us for 1, 2, 3 weeks at a time without food. And she would go on benders and she would just be with another man. And then she would bring those men around us who were abusive.
Like she would literally just leave you guys?
Mm-hmm. And these men were abusive in every facet you can think of: sexual, mental, the worst to me personally, physical. And so I don't have a lot of those memories. My memories really start with, I was around 5 years old, and I would just remember being the biggest inconvenience in my mother's life. There was no love. I was never held. I was never hugged. Never told I love you. It was truly her chasing after anything other than her responsibilities. And I have grace for her because now as a mom, I'm kind of going through the motions of the real life that I'm enduring right now. I have grace in the sense that I think in those times she did the best that she could possibly do. She wasn't given tools. She wasn't raised well herself. The generational curse really starts back to even my grandmother and her being a child. And so
Okay, so I just want to paint a picture for people. So at 5 years old, and your sisters were how old at that time?
So if I'm 5, Megan's not born yet.
Okay.
I have an 8-year-old sister and then a 15-year-old sister.
Okay. So were they like stepping up to take care of you when she was gone?
My oldest sister, she has a different perception of everything and how everything went. My older sister has a different perception of how everything went. I have a different perception, and then Megan has a different perception. I think when you are children and you're different ages and you endure different abuse and you endure different parts of your mother, you have different stories, you have a different outlook, you have different experiences. And so for my oldest sister, she will convey to anyone and everyone that she took care of us. But what I remember is that when she was kicked out at 15, when I was 5, that she was gone and I was alone. What I remember is that I mentally had to be strong for my older sister. And when my Megan was a little girl, about 2 years old, is when her father and our mom split up because he's a wonderful man. I just remember being mentally strong for all of them. But
so she would literally go on vendors. You're just at home with your sisters. At this point, you were getting abused, or you don't remember?
I have been abused since probably birth.
Sexually?
No, neglected, abandoned, verbally, emotionally. There was a man, and it's still hard to say his name. I can't stand the name. But I remember vividly, I was sitting in front of the television, and my mom was in the shower with another man. And I remember he had red hair, and there's this knock on the door, and there's this like guitarist rocker. And he has long curly hair, and he asked for my mom. And fast forward, she marries this man, and I was probably about 6 when they got married, and he was 100% Satan on earth. He was so physically abusive to her. I would see her head getting smashed into concrete walls. I would see her getting thrown across coffee tables. I would listen, I would go, me and my sister, my older sister, we would crawl over to a vent and we would hear it all. He kind of held her captive in our basement. We would only see her on Thursdays during a specific show, which was Charmed, and she could watch it with us. And
Your experience, you're literally seeing all this because he's doing it in front of you?
yeah,
Or like hiding?
I thought that abuse is love. I thought that physical abuse is love. And so the physical part of it didn't scare me as much as the screams. It didn't scare me as much when I would get a knock on my bedroom door in the middle of the night. It didn't scare me as much when he would tell me he needs to be in the restroom with me when I would go. That was probably the hardest thing to overcome. I just remember feeling like, why isn't my mom fighting? Why isn't my mom leaving him and fighting for us and choosing us? Why isn't she stronger? And why am I going through what I'm going through? Why am I so alone? Why am I a child without a father, with a mother of the example that I had? And why do I feel like I have to be mentally strong for my 2 sisters, one older, one younger? Like, what? This isn't right. This is not how it's supposed to be. And I didn't know who God was. She didn't have faith. We didn't pray. What I remember her and her like happy moments were 80s music in the living room dancing. And then that was like a joyful moment I would have with her. And then she'd be gone. She was just so, I think she was, in those times, I think that she was, and this went on for my first 16 years of life. I think she was so broken, like shattered to dust. I I think she was so blind to the reality of having responsibility and having 4 children. At that point, my older sister was adult now, so she was doing her own things, and I'd watch the examples she would set, and I'd be like, I'm not being like that. And then I'd watch my older sister grow older, and the examples she would set, and she became addicted to men. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. That is not what I want. And Megan, she had like a godsend of a father who to this day is still, I call him a saint. He is like, I always thought when I was young, I'd write a book and I would always read, or the title was going to be Until I Met Steve. So I don't know, my childhood was, it wasn't child. I didn't have a childhood. No one was allowed over the house. It was so filthy at times that I remember I would just switch on the lights and there would be thousands of cockroaches just like going in the cracks and going behind cabinets and going in the baseboards. And that was normal to me. There was a point in my life where I slept on I was supposed to sleep on the floor and there was just mice crawling over me. And I was like, okay, this is normal. I wasn't allowed to have friends come over. There was always CPS. There were multiple times there were cops raiding the home with guns to my head as a child.
To your head? Like, why were the cops there in the first place?
So, ironically enough, when I was a child, I thought it was because of weed, marijuana. And I created this like huge bitterness around marijuana for the next 18 years of my life, probably 20 plus years of my life. And I thought that's what it was, but I found out later on that it was because there was a meth lab in the basement and there was cocaine and drug deals and stuff like that. But I wasn't aware of all of that. What I was aware of was what I could see, and I just thought that cops were bad. They weren't there to help me. They weren't there to help my sisters. They were there to take a mother away from her children. And so when I watched her, there was one time I watched her get arrested and she was bleeding all over her face because she had just been beat brutally by the husband. And I watched him just be like so charismatic to the police and get the police to believe him over her. And when you're like a little girl, you're just thinking, it's not supposed to be this way. Like, why am I so alone? Why was I born? Why am I here? And why is there a younger sister that needs so much attention from me that I am almost like receiving the gift of anger, receiving the gift of ignorance, receiving the gift of just abandonment. And so I would then relay that onto my little sister. I'm like, I don't want to get you milk. Like, I can barely take care of myself. You go get yourself milk. Mm-hmm. But then there were moments where my mom would be throwing these glass elephants at her and I, my older sister, and I would just think, I've got to protect these 2 girls. And so I would take them outside, and one time we went outside, we were hiding behind the car, and I was just like shaking, but I was like, okay, I'm going to be the shield for my older sister and my younger sister and me. And my mom would just say, if you guys, and I didn't realize it then, the emotional abuse she had over us, but she would just say, if you call foster care, oh, it'll be way worse than living here. And so I would think, well, crap, what kind of world is this? If I'm in this hellish childhood, right, in this hellish house, and the very own system that's supposed to help children, I'm told that it's worse. I'm told that good luck, go there then. I'm like, I have no way out. There's nothing, there's no hope for me.
Were you like, what was your personality like when you were a child? Since at this point you didn't know God yet.
Yeah. I was a victim. I played that up until I was probably 23 years old. I was the why me? If there's a God, why would he do this to me? If there was a God, why would he let my mother birth me and put me into this childhood? Like, why am I here? I think that was always the question that would always run through my head. Like, why? What is all this for? And why am I single-handedly different than all the other children and kids that I would play with, or in school rather. I wouldn't get to play with them at my house. Just like, why me? And I was negative, but I was also always like smiling. And I remember I would just go through some traumatic event at home. There was one time where my mom and my sister we were in a car wreck. And I remember I just brought this up to her because I drove by Swope Park. You know where that is? We were in a car wreck, and she blamed it on me. She was like,
Her mom blamed it on you?
She was just like, you were antagonizing your younger sister, and now papers are flowing everywhere, and you're the reason I got in a car wreck. But really it was because this husband that was so abusive to her and abusive to all of us, she knew that she was about to be beaten because of that. And so she didn't have the healing that she needed to go through. She didn't have the resources she needed to take care of us and be the buffer between him and us. So she would just basically say, okay, here is anger from him, and I'm going to give it to you. And so I remember we were in the kitchen, and he called me out in the kitchen. I was in my room, and he was choking me, and he raised me above my legs. And I remember he like put me down, and I was like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. And he took a pan and he hit me upside the head with a frying pan.
And how old were you at this point?
Maybe 7 or 8. And I just remember feeling like, why is everything my fault? Why am I always walking on eggshells? Why do I feel like if I use too much shampoo, it's my fault? Why do I feel like I'm getting the wrath of what my sisters have done? And I would get so angry for them. I'm like, Megan, don't use too much toilet paper. We are told we can only use 2 squares for pee, 5 squares for number 2.
Oh my gosh.
And I would, to the point where I would leave the water on in the bathroom because I didn't want him to hear me. I didn't want him to knock on the door and say, I'm going to watch you use the 2 squares of toilet paper. And so I would get so mad, and my mom was doing this to me. She would get mad at me for things I would do because she knew that he was going to attack her for it. And then I started doing that, and I would get so mad at my sisters, like, why did you use too much toothpaste? Now I'm going to get the wrath of this. And I felt like I was always in trouble for things they would do. I felt like I was not loved, and they were. I never felt loved, ever.
Did you ever feel like running away? Or
I did.
you did run away?
Yeah, when I was 12, my mom was in the bathroom, and she was getting ready for some date. And I was in trouble for something. And I remember thinking in my head, okay, it's now or never. I've got to get the courage. I'm going to run from this chair. I'm going to run outside. I'm going to go out the back, hop the fence, and I'm going to keep hopping more and more fences until she can't catch up to me anymore. She was a little one. She's like 5 feet. And so she's like screaming, and I'm just silent. And of course I'm in trouble about something. And I just get the guts, and it's like 5 o'clock. It's like almost dusk. And I just run. And I can hear her screaming and saying, you better come back here. And then when that didn't work, she's like, you better never come back here. And I remember I ran, and I would sit in a sewer, and I would, of course, go through the victim of like, why me? And I cry, and I feel so alone. And I knew a pastor at the time because my sister was a part of church, and I knew what church was, and I knew I was talked about God, but no one ever brought up the name of Jesus. No one ever brought the name. There's a relationship with Jesus. There's Jesus' love. And so I went to his house, and I told him a story. And I said, will you please adopt me? Please just take me as your child, him and his wife. And he was like, we absolutely would, but we have to call your mom back. We have to take you back home. And so he's like, let me call the police, and let's figure out what we can do.
Because you told him everything that was going on. So he believed you.
He believed in me. And so I think a few hours passed, and he said, the police are at your house, and Christina's there, my older sister, which he knew too. And she at that time had been living with another family, and it was just me living with my mom alone. And so he said, I'm going to take you there, I'm going to drop you off, and everything's going to be okay. I'm like, okay. So he takes me home. There's police there. My mom's staying outside, and she has my sister like in an arm lock. And I remember she looked me up and down. She said, "Oh, see, she thinks she can come back here. She left me, and she wants to come back." And I was 12, and I remember feeling like, "How is this my fault? I ran away from you because of the way you were treating me." Well, before that had happened, about a week before, and we did a CPS check, and I was always told to be on my best behavior. Don't say anything. Don't look a certain way.
They would come over frequently.
Don't speak about anything. Well,
Like your mom was coaching you on this?
In the last CPS check that had happened, we were sitting on the couch, and I think I may have like rolled my eyes about something. I don't remember specifics, but I remember vividly the CPS woman, she grabbed her paperwork and she walked out the door, and we had this big bay window where you could actually see in. And my mom straddled me and started to hit me, and she was mad. And she was like, "I know exactly what you did. You are trying to have them take you from me."
She was literally hitting you?
And my mom never scared me. Her abuse never scared me. I had been abused by a man, so it was like, please stop.
Did you fight back?
No. I never fought back with words. To this day, I still will never disrespect a human being. So I just sat there, and I think honestly, at a young age, I realized that to walk on eggshells, you have to diffuse something. And the only way you can diffuse it is if you just shut up. You don't say a word, and you just wait for that like anger to come down. And so the CPS lady, she looked in the window and she saw it happen, and she walked right back to the door and started pounding. She said, "That's it, Rita. That was your final strike. Your daughter's being taken from you. Your kids are no longer yours."
Did you hear this? And so were you on cloud nine?
I felt relieved, but I also, my younger sister was living with her dad, who's an angel. My older sister was living with a family, and my oldest sister was an adult and doing some things. An example that I wouldn't like follow. And so a week later, and this is when I ran away, CPS showed up, the cops were there, and they gave me the choice, and they said, "You may go to a group home tonight, or you can go live with the family that your older sister, we haven't contacted them, you can go live with them." And I remember, I don't know why, but I remember being like, gosh, this is such a hard choice. Like, what do I choose? Be with my sister or be with a group home? And I don't know why it was such a hard choice, but I just knew that the easiest choice was to not stay in that house, not stay with my mom. And so I did choose my sister's family, and they took care of me for almost 2 years. And they were kind of like my foster family.
That was what age at that point?
12. So 12 to 14.
So essentially you had 12 years of abuse. Finally, like, get saved.
I was free from it. My mom would show up to the house that I was living with, and she would pound, and the family, the Cecile and Vince, they were Italians. They would say, "Don't worry, you're safe here. She's not going to get through. She will eventually calm down, and hopefully she won't demand to see you." And then I didn't see her for almost 5 years. I remember seeing her in a pharmacy, and I remember she was like so drugged out, and she didn't recognize me.
Is that so weird?
I felt relieved. I felt like she doesn't know who I am, so I don't even have to have a conversation with her. But I also felt so sad. So sad for her, but so sad for me. I was such a depressed kid. I was never suicidal because I feel like music was always healing to me, like Coldplay. Since 12, I'm like literally feeling like, gosh, these are like band-aids to my heart. How does music speak to me so soulfully? It just like saves me. It's healing.
She went to Coldplay last weekend. Was it 2 weekends ago?
2 weekends ago.
So did the new family that you're with, because up until this point, you haven't believed in God. You really probably want nothing to do with God, I'm assuming.
Blamed him. If there's a God, this is all your fault. If there's a God, you turned your eye on me, and why am I born? Why am I here? Why am I so special to go through all of this? I just remember feeling like such a victim. And I feel like that word for a long time was so triggering for me, because I'm like, I'm not a victim. but I felt like such a victim.
Right.
But
So the new family, did they introduce God to you?
so I became close with a young life group, and then I became close with a church called Reframing Christian Church. But they still, for some reason, or maybe it was just like I was blind to it, or my ears were deaf to it, but I still don't remember a single conversation about what it's like to have a relationship with Jesus and how much His love can heal you. I just remember feeling like it's religion, it's law-abiding, it's legalistic. God is somebody who loves all, but in my little mind, why, if He loved us all, why would He put me through what I was put through?
You started going to church here and there because of them?
Yes, so they were part of that church. We lived close to that church. This is on Raytown.
Okay.
And at that point, I was a ward of the state. So the courts had taken me from my mother. She was no longer allowed to have any type of physical custody, visitations, or anything. And they filed basically like a temporary guardianship, so you will. And when I was about 15, my little sister's dad, he called me up and he decided that he was going to take in me and Christina, my older sister. She was, at this point, she was pretty close to almost 18. She was probably like 16, 17. She was probably 17 at this point because I was 14. And he's like, I'm just going to take in all the girls and I'm going to take care of you. This is a single man, probably in his at this point, late 40s. And he's a tax accountant. And he showed me like love. Now he wasn't affectionate, he still stays an affectionate love giver. He gives you love by actions and like checking in on you.
Mm-hmm. So you still talk to him?
Oh, yes. He is hands down my father.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this is after the family you were with? This is another guy that took you in?
So after I left my mom at 12, I was with the family until 14.
Okay.
And then his name is Steve. He
Okay.
took guardianship of me at 14.
Okay.
So
And
then,
was there something that happened that you didn't stay with that family?
no, it was just always going to be a temporary,
Oh,
it's like
okay.
a temporary foster type setup.
Okay.
So that would keep me out of a foster group home. Later on, I found out that it took him that long to go through courts to get me. And even after he took guardianship of me as well, I was still a ward of the state. So to this day, I am a number, and I am still not loved. To this day, I still have no father, no mother. And I struggled with that so much. So much. I struggled with that.
And meanwhile, where's your dad, your real dad in all this?
He's in Pennsylvania. He's always been in Pennsylvania, but he was in and out of prison a lot.
Okay.
The first time I visited him, I was 7, and I spent a whole summer with him. And he taught me how to rollerblade, he taught me how to cut watermelon, he taught me how to shuffle cards. And those are some memories that stuck with me.
So he's a good guy? No?
Okay. He struggles with his own demons. We went home back after that summer. And my mom, I think I need to preface this, to this day we have a good relationship. And she is tenfold not the human she was back then. But back then she was a gossiper. She would do everything in her power to bring toxicity into us and our home about my father, about my father's family. And she kept everything about him away from me and my sister. And so I didn't know that he had siblings. I didn't know that he had a father and a mother. I didn't know that there were family members that wanted to know me and love me, because my mom, she was just so good at painting the picture she needed to paint, and also playing victim in her own way. Like, it's never me, it's all these men, and it's never the pattern that I'm continuing on. And so I visited him that summer, and then I didn't get to see him again until I was 12, and I saw him for one night. And I remember he called me up and he promised me a cell phone. And back then, you know, there's no
Right.
cell phones. And so I was like,
Got to be cool.
we're not going to have a landline, we're having a cell phone? I will live with you, yes. And so I remember getting so excited that oh my gosh, I'm about to be the coolest kid on earth. I may not be loved, but I'm gonna have a cell phone. And so I agreed. And then I don't remember what happened, but oh, I do remember what happened. The next day, I get these messages. It's like screenshots of something. I don't know if they were emails or what, but my sister told me, she said, Dad is getting arrested. He tried to shoot a police officer. And so he's going to prison. And I remember being like angry. I'm like, what the heck? I was about to gonna live with him and have a cell phone. But that's all my mind could think of, material things. Because I didn't have material things. I lived in a roach-infested home, trailer, the street, and then I lived with one of the kindest foster families after the fact that he promised me this cell phone. And I was living with my mom when that whole promise was going to happen. So
And like the abuse was going on clearly during then, so your heart was probably broken.
Yeah.
Not getting to be through that.
Yeah. His version, his story was, he said that I changed my mind. I don't remember that. And if I did, it was probably God willed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he was so mentally unwell, and he has been probably he's manic bipolar, and he takes medication now, but he didn't then. And so I knew I wouldn't have been safe. Now in retrospect, I would not have been safe. I would have been worse off, probably. And so he was never really in my life. I visited him when I was 20 years old. I visited him in prison. And then at 22, I visited him again. And then at 28, 29, he asked for a DNA test to prove that I wasn't his daughter for child custody stuff, because he's still paying child custody for me.
Mm-hmm.
And his story is, he loved me, or he loves me rather, but he just really needs to see if I'm not really his. And so at that point, I just wrote him off. And I don't have any hard feelings about it. I've never had daddy issues. And I think that's wholeheartedly because when I had my salvation and I accepted that God was my father, he just wiped me clean of all of that. And then when I went through it's crazy, it's only 9 months, but it took me 9 months to go through the battle, the war. It was like a freaking spiritual warfare of going through the healing of my mother and my childhood, and going from victim to victorious, and going from why me to thank God that was me. Thank God that he gave me the strongest mind and he put me through what I was put through so that I can lead and guide and help any other person, so that I can have discernment and empathy towards children, and also so that I could have the heart that I have to love my children. Because I think that this generational curse would have just continued on.
Right.
And I've seen it in my nephews and my niece. And so...
And this is just what is so mind-blowing, because like you had never told me any of this. Like we were roommates, initially a long time ago. And
the stories.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's something concealing.
But it's not in the video. Just disregard. So we were roommates at one point, and I would have never. That is why I'm so amazed with you, because it's like nothing's touched you from the past, and to grow up with that your whole childhood, and like you're literally the most pure, loving, kind person. I was like, there's no way this happened to this chick, not her. So when did you at what point did you go searching for God and like really accept him, and like what did he like start to do in your heart? Because were you really bitter up until this point?
So I had a college sweetheart. Bless his heart, he was probably one of the most gentle humans, and I learned so much from him, and the way a woman should be treated with attention, and also having eyes only on you, and never looking beyond who you are in your mind. But I also feel like he fell in love with a woman that had so much trauma from her childhood that he didn't know how to care for that. He didn't know how to care for that heart. And so I would sometimes lock myself in the closet and have these panic attacks. Like, I don't know why I'm the way I am, and I don't know how to heal from it, and I don't know how to get myself out of it. And at this point, we were atheists. We were both atheists. And again, I hated God. There was a God, I hated him. I was mad at him. I was still playing that whole why me victim role. Well, he moved to Germany, and I was supposed to move with him about 7 or 8 months later. I needed to kind of get some ducks in a row and stuff. I visited him out in Germany for about a month. We were in Europe together. I came back, and about a month later, I was taken to a business meeting, and my best friend at the time, she said, I know you're going to be upset about this, but there is a church service. And I was like, oh, dramatic. Like, are you kidding me? You know I'm not going to go. There's a bar over there.
Never been
a big drinker, but there's a bar. I'm going to go over there and just have a drink on a Sunday morning. And I heard the music. And me and music. Yeah. And it just spoke to me. And so I walked in and I was like, okay, like this is some good stuff. And I look around and I'm a people watcher and I'm an energy feeler. And I see this one woman, this young girl. And to me, it looked like she had this halo over her. To me, she was shining so bright. And I remember looking at her and being, she has never endured anything, no trial and tribulation. She has never walked through fire. She's had to have been dealt the perfect hand. And she shares a fraction of her story, and she talks about divorce. Now, I watched my mom go through 7 divorces. 7 divorces, and so she opens up about divorce. She opens up about a small tidbit of some horror from her childhood. And I go, oh my gosh, she's gone through what she's gone through, and she's smiling, and she's married, and she looks so happy. And that was when I gave my life to Christ. And I just knelt down on the ground, and I just didn't get back up. And I was like, okay, God, you win. You've gotten my heart. Just please don't let me down. And heal me from the inside out the way that you've clearly so healed this woman. And I did. He took me through one of the hardest, oh my gosh, spiritual warfares. I mean, the enemy attacked me so hard. There was a point where I couldn't even sleep with my Bible near my bedroom because Satan would visit me in my dreams, and I had to learn how to call out Jesus from my dreams. And all of these memories would flood and rush over me again, and then I got to a point where I didn't remember anything anymore. And that was probably one of the biggest part of my healing, was that I got to let go, forgive all of those men, forgive that specific one husband of my mother's, and most importantly, forgive my mother. And now to this day, she's one of the most innocent, hilarious women who lives on cloud 9 24/7, and she loves God, and I don't have maternal love for her, and I never learned nurturing from her, but I love her, and I would walk through fire for her, and I would still protect her. I feel like I protect her like I was protecting myself as a child. I feel like I would protect her like I would protect my younger sister, and maybe my older sister.
That is so
I feel like
huge of you.
I remember feeling like, and I think this is how I'm wired as well, I remember feeling like I just want to be normal so badly. That's all I sought after as a young child. And as a teenager, I saw what my older sisters were doing, and those like, addiction runs so deep in my family, whether it's men, alcohol, drugs, codependency, it runs so deep. And so I just knew, I was like, I see that and I don't want that. I see this and I don't want that. I see that. I see how it treats you, and it breaks you down and it tears you down. I don't want that. And so all I did was chase my whole life, was chasing to be normal. And so I think that was the biggest part of how I don't rub off the statistic that I should have been. I don't come off as somebody that has gone through such a traumatic childhood. I mean, you see me as a mother, I think I'm pretty darn nurturing, and that was not given to me as an example. When I was 16, I actually got a call. I was living with my guardian, Steve. I got a call from my aunt, my biological aunt, and she asked me if she wanted to adopt me. I wanted her to adopt me. And I remember where I was sitting. I remember exactly the placement of my dining room. I remember the time the phone call came in. And I was like, yes, abso-freaking-lutely, hands down. I moved to California, and I witnessed, not by her words, but by the way she loved me and by the way she nurtured me, how I wanted to be when I was a mom. Mm-hmm. And so through examples and through God's little blessings all around me and throughout my whole life, people coming in and out and just like showing me, hey, I believe you were loved. Even though I didn't feel it from people in my own house, I love you. And they would leave. I feel like there's so many people in my life that have come and gone, and I have felt true abandonment. I just wanted to be normal. I wanted to live a victorious life. I had to give it all up to God, and I had to trust Him that He would turn my mess into a message. And
praise God.
Praise God. And this version of me is so much stronger and so much more self-aware.
And a pure angel. I would refer to her as my angel friend. I always think when I get to heaven, God's going to say, Millie was actually an angel this whole time on earth. Like, you're welcome. But thank you so much for opening up, because I know sharing all that is not easy. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for more.